Hey, welcome to Witching Hour Tarot. This is my second reading of the day, so, just want to get into it. My other read was actually quite long, it was 45 minutes, so way longer than I usually, film for. I usually try to keep things under 30 minutes, so maybe it'll be that short this time, maybe it'll be a little longer. Let's see what's going on in the collective. I did switch my decks and I just did shuffle them all again, so do a little bit more, of course. Let's see what's going on in the collective. The Magician. Yeah, so manifestation is here. This is someone who is able to take, the spiritual and put it in the physical. Someone who's able to, bring light to things as well with the amount of light on his sombrero here, kind of light up the pathway for everyone to follow. And this is also like this, I love the symbology here of the hand. It's kind of related to a Hamsa as well. It's like, I think this is more of a witching, more associated with witchery than any type of religion. So spiritual mastery is here. Maybe you're clairvoyant, clairaudient. I definitely feel like, I don't think I'm clairvoyant, but I certainly feel that I'm like a little clairaudient. Like if I'm connected to someone, I feel like I can, feel kind of their emotions and their thoughts pretty intensely, depending on the connection and, how much I'm focusing on it or not. So you could kind of be, dealing with powers of divination or, clairvoyant kind of, gifts, a sixth sense that you're trying to interpret, that you're trying to make sense of. Fortunately, like, with being empathic, I hate to label myself as empathic. I think it's very dangerous to think of yourself as like being special or different than other people. It's an easy way to go down to a road of, having a mental health issue, but, knock on wood, thank God, like, like I make jokes with my parents, like if I had any mental health issues, or in mental health illnesses, like they would have totally manifested at this point, if I had like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, schizoid, whatever, like any sort of issue, it would have manifested at this point, and it would have been apparent to me and everyone else, the Magician can also, with that being said, signify kind of a madness. People, very smart people do go mad as well, or, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like if you have a brilliant, like a beautiful mind with Russell Crowe, like, he was that gentleman, I forgot his, Nash, I think is his last name. He was an economist at Princeton, but he also had like horrible, a horrible mental illness of schizophrenia. And when you have these kinds of mental health issues, it's very difficult to function if you're not, treated, obviously, or medicated. And, it's kind of funny, like it really depends on your opinion on it. But unfortunately, and even in the modern day world, like if you have a mental health issue, these people just end up getting so drugged up on whatever, I don't even know, the tons of medication that they just like, they totally lose their essence, like my father kind of, we had this conversation about mental health or mental illness before, and he's like, unfortunately, all we can really do for those people is just, make them sit there and blink. They just totally lose their soul, so someone could be struggling with mental illness right now. And unfortunately, like as well, like people that suffer from these mental illness, I see this word will here engraved into the magician's kind of desk, and they they don't like taking their medication, because it totally numbs them. It totally just like just turns them right off. Turns off their light. But definitely, skill for manifestation, skill to see things, to hear things, understand things, and as a sixth sense, like not something that's so obvious or blatant. It's like, more of an intuition. Six of Swords. Yeah, so we saw this in our last reading, the Six of Swords. So this is kind of a more accurate depiction of what it looks like in the Rider-Waite Tarot deck. But the Six of Swords signifies, it's a family, I think, on a boat, and they're moving across a river, and there's six swords, stabbed into the boat, or whatever, standing on the boat. And it's moving on from really tough hardship, moving on from a really tough situation. Typically it's warfare, toxic situations, horrible relationships, being taken advantage of, all those things. So maybe someone's kind of tapping into their abilities to manifest as they're moving on and realizing that they want more from their life. They're just so sick of being stuck and victimized and in these kind of awful situations, and want more. Don't just want the status quo, want more. The World. Yeah, so the World, everything comes back around. It's all kind of cyclical. You see there, I think this is actually the Santa Muerte holding a scythe. So, everything in this world is cyclical. We have seasons all across everywhere. Even in Antarctica, there are seasons. Even if it's iced over the entire time, there's fixed things in the universe at this point in time as it's evolved over billions of years. Granted, it's subject to change, but there's divine karma here. There's reaping what you've sown. Maybe in a good way, maybe in a bad way. We'll see. We'll see what else comes out. Judgment. Yeah. So, this is a very, there's three major arcanas that we have so far. It's a very highly spiritual reading. Spirit's definitely trying to reach to someone and, tap into your manifestation powers, move on from the BS, like everything comes back around. It's all going to be fine anyway. Use your best judgment from these situations that you've had. Spirit is here protecting you, saving you, trying to guide you along the way. So just consider me your guide. Knight of Cups. Yeah, so we've seen the Knight of Cups so many times in all my readings with all different decks, and this is a very romantic card. So definitely romance is on the table officially. So some love is on someone's mind for sure. I know I do say like that kind of colloquialism a lot, like I just the way I talk at this point. I think maybe I could stop myself. I'd have to see a speech kind of expert and fix the way that I mumble jumble, because I do mumble jumble quite a lot. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, so, move forward into your love situation. That's kind of what you're being advised to do. You have the best judgment. It doesn't matter. Leave the past in the past. Manifest it. Find it. Become it. Six of Wands. Yeah, so there's victory here. I love when there's repetition in my reading. So we saw the Six of Swords and Six of Wands in my last reading as well. So, you know, this is kind of the general energy that's out on the table. So there's victory in trying to move on from stuff. Like, you're going to be just fine, especially with the world here. You know, I think that we get so much anxiety about a change in our situation. But, you know, like, you do have to, like, everything's subject to change. The whole world is subject to change. There are fixed things in the universe, and that fixed thing is change. So, the Tower. Yeah, so maybe there's a realization here as well. The Tower does symbolize, you know, instant change, you know, instantaneous kind of, like, you know, not necessarily enlightenment, especially with the Six of Swords, but an instant realization, you know, that maybe you've been living the wrong way, maybe you've been investing in the wrong things, maybe, you know, you said you've done the wrong things before, and you're also being subject to the circumstances of your decision making. You know, like, that's a thing, is like learning how to be accountable for things that you do, but not only that, you know, people do to you, and like you don't get any sort of closure from a situation. Like, that is you know, one of the hardest lessons of life. You know, when you hang on to all that anger and resentment, and you know there are tons of horrible things happen to people all the time. You know, I had this friend who was, you know, he's a man, and he was actually sexually assaulted as a child a couple of times, you know, and he dealt with these issues. He's like, I didn't talk about it until I was 40. Granted, he did, you know, it manifested in really toxic ways. You know, the pain that he was carrying, and then, you know, he realized that his life was kind of a mess, and he wasn't really sure how to handle the situation. But you kind of just, like, this is also out of your control, you know, especially with the world here. Like, something just happened here that's out of your control, that you can't even, you know, solve or fix, and you're just kind of subject to the circumstances. But, you know, you also put yourself in that situation. Like, you did climb all the steps to get to that tower, you know. So that's where all our power is how we move on from really tough situations, and how can we be accountable for things that aren't our fault, you know, by moving on from them, by letting go of the anger and resentment. Ace of Swords. Yeah, we saw this in my last reading too, so ain't that the truth? There's definitely truth out here on the table, a decisive truth, a definitive truth about the world. You know, everyone kind of, my friend, I said this, I think, in one of my other readings. I was talking to my friend, and they were just like, yeah, like, everyone has their own reality, but some people's realities are more out of touch with others, you know, or more out of touch with actual, like, what actually reality is, you know, and toxic people tend to live in the same reality, unfortunately, you know. And so I like, there are certain situations that I won't even touch with a 6-foot pole, because I know how toxic they are, or how toxic, you know, and like birds of a feather flock together. Like, toxic people usually attract other toxic people, you know, because they don't have the boundaries or the self-awareness, or, you know, the experience in place to kind of set to you know, not be attracted to it. Like, I can personally, like, if one person I know is toxic, I know every single other person that they hang out is probably also toxic, you know, and they just, like, reinforces themselves, and then they're subject to, like, you know, falling from their tower together, and, like, realizing that, yeah, well, maybe the way that I thought about this was not right. Like, maybe I was completely wrong. Maybe, you know, and most people are too proud to have that, you know, type of a self-accountability with themselves. Like, you know, a huge indicator of a toxic person is whether or not they feel like they should apologize. You know, some people think, well, I don't owe this person anything. Like, I told them, you know, I don't owe them anything. Like, you know, but like, think about how like that kind of mentality, like all of your relationships suffer. You know, you're only meeting people halfway because you're only meeting yourself halfway. You know, if that's how you want to live, then like, you know, you're entitled to live however you want. But you know, things will happen where you think everything, you're sitting pretty, and you know, life circumstances just come right at you, and it's kind of like a snowball effect. Like you started doing this, and it built on itself, and it built on itself. Like, you know, I had this friend that was really involved and like, you know, was kind of living a double life and like involved in things I had no interest in being involved in, and she was trying to like, you know, incorporate me more and more into, you know, her toxic lifestyle as we became closer. And I'm just like, listen, like, you know, I respect you, and you know, I get it, and like you have stuff to hide, like that's fine, but like that's not how I live my life, you know, like we have different values here, you know, we don't have to be friends if this is how you want to live your life, and this is what you want, and you think I'm gonna, you know, go along for the ride just because I'm afraid to stand up for myself, or I'm afraid of conflict. Like I'm not afraid to say like no, like at all, you know. But there's gonna be a certain point where, you know, she's stuck in this toxic lifestyle, and she's so unhappy and so miserable, and everyone else around her is toxic, you know, have addiction issues, you know, living double life, you know, making money, you know, and in what's the word, in immoral way, not in a place of judgment, but out of deep care for yourself. Like I choose not to subject myself to a lot of things because I care about myself so much, you know. Like I won't even touch that. Like I won't even mess with that with the 10-foot pole. And you know, some people are just obviously toxic to me. And the thing is too is that like you can't fight toxicity with toxicity. It just becomes more and more toxic. Like you have to, you know, learn just how to step away and disengage and like not deal with the BS. But nobody's perfect. Like, you know, sometimes we really have to tell people to back the F off. You know, back the F off. And they still don't get it. 10 of Cups. Yeah, so even with all this kind of like, you know, the negativity out on the table with the Tower, and it's the only really negative card here. With Victoria, the other 10 of Cups. So this is like ultimate wish fulfillment, like, you know, love, marrying the love of your life, you know, soulmate kind of stuff, like everything's fulfilled. You know, tying the knot and then untying the knot. And finding an easy solution as well. Like here in the Ace of Swords, you can see that there's a huge knot behind the swords, and he's going to get through that web by probably just chopping through it. So like, you know, there's an easy solution here. Whether, you know, whatever that is, it's up to your best judgment. You know, say sorry. Make amends. Don't be so proud. You know? And like that's the thing is too, is that like with toxic people, it's impossible to be vulnerable with them, because they'll not only use your vulnerabilities against you, they'll leverage your vulnerabilities to their advantage. You know. So, like, that's the thing, is like, when you're afraid to speak your truth with someone because of retaliation, you're afraid of what they say, you know, you're walking on eggshells, like, that's your body's first instinct letting you know that that person isn't for you. Two of Swords. Yeah, so we saw this in my last reading. Again, different deck. So we saw the Six of Wands, Six of Swords, and Two of Swords in both my readings that I did tonight. So I love the reoccurrence. And we saw the Ace of Swords. So there's 4 repetitive cards here. We'll see if there's going to be even more. But like, this is kind of mastery with the Two of Swords, and master over your decision making and using all of your devices to kind of make the best decision, you know, decisively, and cut the situation in half, and find an easy solution. The easy solution is probably, you know, tapping into your vulnerable side, and like, and not just like thinking that shit's gonna become this. It could still, like, people get sick all the time, you know, unfortunately. And that's kind of like, it's totally, this is out of control circumstance, like a natural disaster, you know, getting sick, you know, an accident. Temperance. Yeah, so we saw Temperance in my last reading as well. Temper yourself. Find patience in the situation. You know, maybe if you meditated more rather than, like, you know, living in your ego and seeking victory over things, and you know, being at peace and not putting yourself into these toxic situations, you would have completely avoided this. You know, find meaning in the simple things. But someone's definitely been patient here, you know, patient with their manifestation. There's victory for sure. I'm sorry if you had to deal with these, you know, situations that, you know, again, out of our control, and unfortunately life does that to the best of us. And justice. Yeah, so Spirit sees you. You're going to be avenged for whatever happened. You know, and so, like, I know that, you know, for me personally, like, I have a lot of good karma on my side, because I'm a nice person. Like, I don't need to screw over people. I don't need to, you know, be mean to people. I don't need to, you know, I'm a very moral person. I have a high standard of morality, you know, so there's justice here for someone with that. You know, I'm not trying to relate it to myself, but when you have a high, you know, spiritual morality, and you treat people well, and you know, you try to do the best that you can, like, Spirit will protect you, you know. Everything comes back around, unfortunately, you know, so with that too, like, you know, I'm not going to get into that right now. When you put out this, like, cruelty in the world, like, it just kind of, not only festers, but it, like, hyper, manifests itself. Like, so let's think about energy, like good, positive, pure energy, as moving like molasses, you know. But when it moves, you can see the trail, and it covers everything, right? So let's, like, picture like a, you know, a gallon of molasses being dumped onto my desk right now. And so as it's dripping down, it kind of like encompasses everything, and there's like a power to it. But then, you know, say negative energy, you know, dark energy is like vinegar, and you dump, you know, vinegar on my desk, it will move much more quickly to, you know, fall off the sides of it, and, you know, puddle on the floor or whatever. But then the molasses is like much more, I'm just trying to, you know, give you a good interpretation, you know, an accurate interpretation of like dark energy and light energy. But when you live in like dark energy, and you're trying to, like, hurt people or don't care or lack empathy or, living in your karmic, it affects things around you very quickly. Slow, pure energy is more slow moving, but it has more of a snowball effect because it's slow moving. There's a stability to it. If that makes any sense at all. I totally just came up with that now, so. Yeah, the Six of Pentacles. So we've been seeing this a lot in most of my readings. So give back to the situation. Be charitable. Be kind. Express your kindness. Like don't create more victims just because you've been victimized. Queen of Cups. Yeah, so the King of Cups actually came out very close to the Queen of Cups. So this is definitely Spirit's kind of encouraging you to embrace your. We've seen the cups a lot in my readings. Like embrace your nurturing side, your flexible side, your fluid side. Don't be so find your flexibility in the situation. Like you'll find victory too. Ace of Cups. Yeah, so there's romantic feelings here on the table tonight. Overflowing your cup. Your cup is overflown. After I channel, I get really tired sometimes. So I've been reading for about an hour now. You're gonna be victorious. You have the decision making. You have the mastery. I know that you've been through hard stuff, but the power of manifestation is here. Everything's gonna come back around. It's gonna be just fine. The reality of the Tower is that you have to restart your life or reapproach life in a different way. But you're gonna get your justice. Love, light, and blessings to all of you. Have a great night.